meet my bride. Let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the Speed Meter Steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. It was quite common for both early bicycle and automakers to offer what were called assembled vehicles. This is where a manufacturer buys most of the components needed from various other companies and puts them together in their own facility. It was often cheaper to do this than to build a factory capable of making the large and complicated bits. And usually the quality of their final products suffered as a result. But not always. One particular British chap assembled both bikes and cars before growing his company to the point where he could make the whole thing in-house, and in the process became one of England's most celebrated and honored industrial icons, William Morris. Born in Worcester, England, not the sauce, in 1877, William Richard Morris would have won a most likely to become a gypsy award from his graduating class if he had actually graduated school. His father, Frederick, was, in William's own words, a rolling stone. He had left home at 17 and went to Canada, working as a stagecoach driver while living with the local native tribes. He wandered back to England in the early 1870s, doing odd jobs here and there and having a tendency to just disappear for weeks on end, kind of like one of my cats. Frederick did finally settle down in Oxford in the 1880s, where he found steady work on his father-in-law's farm. Young William seemed to inherit his father's restlessness. As a child, he had the run of the farm and showed an inclination towards mechanics and engineering. He liked to work with his hands. School, on the other hand, was not his thing, and he quit his classes at the ripe age of 15 to begin an apprenticeship with a local bicycle manufacturer. However, he noticed that he was working hard and learning much, but wasn't being paid enough for his tastes. So after 9 months, he quit that as well, now having no formal education or apprenticeship to a trade. Undaunted, he went back to his mom's house in Oxford and set up his own small bicycle repair shop in a shed. Bike riders were all over Oxford in the 1890s and business was good. He began to assemble his own bikes as well, buying components like wheels, gears, chains and such, and welding together his own frames. At the same time, he entered any local bike races he could find, riding his own cycle, often to victory. Within a couple of years, he was the Oxford cycle champion and his small concern grew. By 1896, he was able to move his operation out of his mom's shed and rented a proper workshop as well as a storefront to sell his bikes. Business was booming, and by 1901, he expanded his operation. New workshops allowed him to begin building motorcycles and motor trikes, most powered by small 2¼ horsepower De Dion engines, as well as 2 horsepower engines from the Motor Manufacturing Company, or MMZ. William continued to expand his company offerings, soon making auto repair and car rentals available. In 1903, he was approached by another local businessman with the idea of opening a car dealership. Morris was all over the idea and invested most of his money in the new venture, offering cars by Errol Johnson, Humber, Belzier, Woolsey, and others. Unfortunately, young Morris did not choose his partner well, and within a year the business was bankrupt, his partner squandering the profits on parties with his friends. His then new wife sold her jewelry so that William could at least buy back the tools from the liquidation sale. This episode had a lasting effect on Morris, and he would be loath to ever again accept a business partner. Thankfully, he was well known and respected in the area, and within a few months was able to get a small business loan and reestablish his concern. His workshop was back in operation as well as his showroom, offering his own manufactured bikes as well as several makes of cars. By 1908, his business was again in full swing, selling bikes and cars, repairing both, and renting them. Yet Morris was not particularly satisfied with the cars he was selling, believing them to be not as well built or reliable as they could be. And so, in 1910, he made the decision to make his own cars. He had sold off the bicycle side of his business in 1908 to focus on his car dealership, and it was now time to become a manufacturer of cars. He went to every car show, car fair, and industry gathering he could get to, researching not only the cars themselves, but also how to make connections with other dealers, suppliers, and manufacturers in the business. As he did with his bicycle concern, he chose to make an assembled car first, using components that were already well developed and reliable. His first car, the Morris Oxford, rolled out of his factory in 1913. It definitely had a unique look, its bullnose radiator and somewhat stubby lines being quite distinguishable. Yet Morris was unlike most makers of assembled cars. William was proud of the fact that his cars were made from the best products available, instead of trying to hide the fact that the car was an assembled job. 8.9 horsepower provided by a 1-liter White and Pop engine, 3-speed transmission, artillery wheels. It was not a particularly technologically advanced car, but it was solidly built, reliable, and with a bargain price at under 200 pounds. Morris began to sell these cars like hotcakes. Of course, World War I got in the way, and during the war his factory was converted into munitions manufacturer, making sea mines for the British war effort. After the war, William began to make his own engines, and Morris would become England's largest manufacturer of cars. We'll look at the famous Morris cars of the 20s and 30s in the future. The Right and Honourable Sir William Morris was one of England's greatest industrialists and philanthropists of the first half of the 20th century, being awarded the Knight's Grand Cross and life peerage as first Viscount of Nuffield. Definitely not a gypsy. Thanks for watching Vintage Car History, and we'll see you next week. Peace.